And that was his first argument, proofs for the hereafter, proofs for the resurrection. So part of it's apologetics, defending Islam in the face of skepticism and atheism and a suspicion that perhaps none of this is true and all of it is to be associated with a pre-modern age. And he let me just quote his reflections on the Quran, where he talks about the Quran. The all-wise Quran, which makes known to us our sustainer, is thus: it is the pre-eternal translator of the great book of the universe, the disclosure of the treasures of the divine names concealed in the pages of the earth and heavens, the key to the truths hidden beneath these lines of events, the treasury of the favours of the most merciful, and the pre-eternal addresses which come forth from the world of the unseen, beyond the veil of this manifest world. And so he goes on. That's from the fourth droplet in the words. In other words, he is not your liberal Muslim in the sense of a Muslim who's skeptical about the truth of Islam. He comes out of that place of rootedness. He comes out of that tradition, and he believes fervently in its validity and insights. He combines that commitment to rationality and the elegance of Islam and the Quran with beautiful piety, which come off the pages. I mean, as a Christian reading this sort of material, you can't help but periodically be swept into moments of prayer as you encounter his reflection on the nature of the creation, or the beauty of God and God's interaction with nature. One of my favourite passages is where he's reflecting on the nature of prayer, and he's talking about the Islamic practice of 5 daily prayers and why it's important and precious. This again is from the 9th word of the volume called The Words. And he likens, and I think this is lovely, he likens the pattern of 5 daily prayers to the pattern of reflecting on one's life. So the initial prayer before sunrise may be likened to spring's birth, the moment when sperm takes refuge in the protective worm, or the first of the 6 consecutive days during which the earth and sky were created. So it captures freshness and new life and starting again. The time just past midday may be likened to the completion of adolescence, the middle of summer, or the period of humanity's creation in the world's lifetime. The time for sunset reminds us of many creatures' decline at the end of autumn, and also of our own mortality, of our own death. It thus forewarns us of the world's destruction, the resurrection's beginning. The time at nightfall calls to mind the worlds of darkness. In other words, what he's done is he's inviting a Muslim to see those 5 daily prayers as a way to actually reflect on all one's own life, and also how God is relating constantly with all of creation, from beginning through to end. And it does actually, as you reflect on this as a sort of way of looking at day and the passing of time, you find yourself actually thinking differently about day and passing of time. You actually do find yourself thinking afresh about the nature of time and the importance of living life in the context of eternity and immortality. In short, what I find when I read the Risale-i is live as if God really is. And actually that's quite an important challenge for Christians, because Christians are quite good at living as if God might be. Certainly the mainline tradition of which I'm a part. But in Nursi you get a very strong sense, live as if God really is, and if God really is, then let it really make a difference to one's life. The second key theme is his attitude to the state, which I think is very, very interesting. He actually famously said 99% of Sharia consists of ethics, worship, afterlife and virtue. 1% of it is related to politics, about which our principal rulers ought to think. And elsewhere he actually writes that when it comes to leadership of a Muslim state, or a state predominantly occupied by Muslims, You don't worry about whether your baker is a Muslim or whether your silversmith's a Muslim. So what you need is good leadership. You need good leadership which can serve the people effectively. If that skill set is found in a non-Muslim, then that's fine. I mean, this is actually quite a striking, for the conversation within Islam, this is quite a striking position to take. Yet, he's not indifferent, and no Muslim can be, to how state and nationhood is organized. So you get, throughout his writings, you know, real concerns about usury, real concerns about the poor, the obligation to take care, commitment to justice. So he wants to put pressure on rulers to act in just ways and support those which have least, running parallel also with a strong sense that that is the Muslim contribution to the state, not necessarily that Muslims run the state. And this is, I think, a very distinctive position in the Islamic world. The third feature I want to highlight is his commitment to dialogue and non-violence. He talks explicitly about, this is from the biography of Said Nursi by Sukran Vahidi, where she summarizes his position nicely. The way of the risale-i Nur was peaceful jihad, or jihad of the word, in the struggle against aggressive atheism and irreligion. By working solely for the spread and strengthening of belief, it was to work also for the preservation of internal order and peace and stability in society in the face of the moral and spiritual destruction of communism and the forces of irreligion which aim to destabilize society and create anarchy and to form a barrier against them. It's quite clear that Nursi was deeply committed to non-violence. I don't think the category pacifist would necessarily apply, because that's not how the question would be framed. And certainly I think Nursi, as every Muslim, is committed to the right of self-defense. But the rules he states for self-defense are so limited that he definitely thinks that any Muslim who resorts to violence has in a very real sense failed. And it's a failure both of belief in God, belief in the providence of God to ultimately make sure that right and good happens, but it's also a failure in the sense of a lack of confidence in the truth, elegance and beauty and the coherence of Islam. So it's like a sort of child who's got a very strong identity and is secure in who they are, can then go out in the world and worry less about encountering disagreement or oppositions. When you have that self-confidence, says Nursi, you should be able to interact much more constructively with difference and diversity. And there's a strong commitment in Said Nursi's writing to both dialogue and to non-violence. There is a saying where he talks about the fact that if you've got a military ship made up of personnel, and on that ship, full of 1,000 soldiers, and on that ship one child, you're not allowed to sink that ship. So he's got a deep commitment to non-violence and to dialogue. The fourth theme is his conviction that you should learn from modernity yet resist the atheism of modernity. He very much saw that we were at a time when the people of the book need to form some sort of alliance against Richard Dawkins, against Sam Harris, against Christopher Hitchens, against those who really do think that you can make sense of the complexity of this world without reference to any sort of transcendent belief in God. And he spent a lot of time talking about the two Europes. One Europe which we can learn from in terms of science and understanding of the world in all its complexity. The other Europe which is attached to materialism and to positivism which denies the existence of God. So now the other thing that's important to stress is that this has been a hugely influential movement. I mean, given the literature which has been written on the Egyptian Brotherhood, which probably numbers hundreds in terms of adherents, this is a movement of literally millions. I mean, and numbers vary because, of course, people don't join in ways that you can recognizably identify them. But from a conservative estimate of, say, 6 million up to 9 million. So it's a very major Islamic movement in the modern world, which people don't know very much about.